This has been one crazy year. Everything has been turned upside down. So, what do you do if your kids are struggling mentally or emotionally?
I know, you go get some advice from a professional, and that's what we're going to do today. And this is Chick to Chick.
Carrie, is this year over yet? Is it over
No.
yet?
It's not.
Almost. This has been really just a crazy, crazy year. Who would have thought way back on March 13th when everything shut down that we would still be in this situation? Here we are. It's almost at the end of the year. And we're all trying to adapt to things not being normal, even our kids. But a lot of kids are struggling. They're struggling emotionally. They're struggling mentally. Their sports have been disrupted. School has been disrupted. How can you help them?
Exactly. And I think now is a great time to really have that conversation because we've been through a lot of a new normal and we need to sort of see what that means and sort of shake out where our kids are really struggling now after time with trying to do online when nobody could go into school, having some time during the summer to sort of shake off the COVID cobwebs, but then re-engaging in a brand new atmosphere. And this isn't just young kids, this is older kids too.
And you know what? We now have the holidays coming up, and that's a stressful time to begin with. So now we've got stress on top of stress on top of stress. I think we need some help.
So joining us today, we have Amanda Levison, and she is licensed professional counselor with the Neurofeedback and Counseling Center. Amanda, there's so much we need to unpack right now on how we can help our kids of all ages emotionally during this crazy time. What I really want to ask you, first of all, is parents who are at home with their kids who are really at home all of the time and have a lot of questions, those young kids, what kind of advice do you want to give them about how to really put a child at ease?
I think it's really interesting because my biggest mom tip that I always tell people is don't listen to other people's advice. You have to do what works for you and your family. So that would be number one. But I think that it's really helpful to tell your children of what's happening, the importance of wearing a mask. If you were to be out in public, get them comfortable with the idea and make the mask a special thing, whether they have a necklace chain to it or a special fabric, but something that they enjoy wearing, and teaching them the rules of hand washing and wearing a mask would be the first steps to do when going out and about, and teaching them just that, that people have germs and we can't always control them. And this is the best way that we protect ourselves and our family.
I like that. You're saying just follow your gut, because ultimately what works for me isn't going to work for you and vice versa. I think because this is such a crazy situation, there's no right or wrong answer. It's whatever happens to work for your family. I think some kids too, Amanda, struggle because they might think, why can I go to school? It's okay to go to school, but maybe I can't go and have a play date with my friend. Why can I go to school, but then I can't go to sports? And I think the kids are even struggling with the contradiction. How do you handle that?
So there are a lot of things that you have to think of. What are you as a parent comfortable doing? Some people feel comfortable having like outside activities for their children or play dates that are strictly outside and wearing masks, or they say we're outside, we don't wear masks, versus other people say, I'm ready to go back to our regular activities, whether, dance class or get-togethers inside the house. So again, you have to do what works for your family. A great way to explain it to kids is to look at it that we all have germs. And when we're young, we have a really strong immunity. And so it's really great to teach your kids, even almost that they have this superpower of how great our body fights germs. And so when we go to outside activities and we have fresh air, it can help us more. And when we're closed inside, sometimes the germs can't fight as hard. And to kind of approach it in that way would work wonderful with little kids.
Yeah, that's super smart. And I think that's a great way to explain it even to an adult. It just made a lot of sense. So let's talk about the new learning environment. So we have kids that are sometimes all in school all day long, and others are doing that hybrid approach where sometimes they're home and not. And then there's the kids whose parents decided to just have them do online completely. And I've heard so many things from parents whose children are really having a difficult time in the learning process, online only. And they're really struggling because it's not the type of student they are. They can't really pick it up. So my advice, or rather your advice of being a parent, what do you tell parents about how to kind of relax a little maybe, or how do they have a conversation with their child that's really having a hard time and anxious?
So I think that a lot of times children vibe off of their parents, right? So the ones that are going to be 100% virtual, typically the parent might be a little bit more stressed about what's happening as well. So if your child feels your stress, they are going to take that on. I think it's important to communicate with them if you are feeling stressed, so they could recognize it rather than just sensing it, that what they are recognizing is valid, and setting a schedule and realizing to pick and choose your battles. So, for instance, if math is really important and they need to focus on that, then make sure that they're focusing on that. But maybe science, you could incorporate whatever the lesson may be in a more exciting environment, rather than just sitting there and doing classwork. I know I have one friend, she does the most creative things with her child for science classes, whether it's learning the impact of toothpaste on an egg and how that would impact with the enamel, to all these different painting exercises with crayons, crazy exercises that are amazing, honestly. And it's amazing that she can find them all, but she's adding these sciences to make it fun and exciting. And that's what a teacher would hopefully do in a classroom setting. And if a parent is deciding that their kid is not going out of their home, it's important that they're able to incorporate some type of creative involvement for their child for school. And also to set breaks and realize that someone's attention span is so limited that they can only sit there for so long, paying attention to the lesson, the teacher, whatever it may be. So to make sure that they're able to give their child some breaks to run around away from video games, so they're not just at the screen, but doing some type of activity that could kind of get them to have some free time.
I think what I keep hearing from you is, let's take this crazy situation and try to make it fun. It's kind of like trying to get kids to eat their vegetables. Try to make it fun to get them to eat their vegetables.
Exactly.
There's no other way to put it. This has been the year from hell. And even if you've tried all of that and you've tried to make things fun, we're all struggling with this year, and little kids are struggling too. So as a parent, what are some of the signs that you should look for that maybe your child is struggling emotionally or mentally? And if you do see those signs and you recognize them, what can you do to help them get out of this dark space?
So again, it's about picking and choosing your battles. So if you see a child is throwing temper tantrums more often, to try to talk to them about it. It really depends on the age of the child. If, let's say, they start regressing in developmental things, that would also be a concern. But I would look at it for long standing, not just a weekend or a week, because everyone can be a little off for short term. But I would see if this is consistently for weeks or a month, changes in behaviors, maybe just their attitude may change towards things, their areas of interest, if their appetite changes severely, all those things would be red flags to kind of talk to them, maybe reach out to a professional and see if someone can address them with them, be a support for them.
So that sounds like a good plan for some of the younger kids, maybe elementary kids, but teenagers hibernate. They go in their room, they get out of the way and scurry off,
right?
Away from their parents. And so many kids are really struggling with not being around a social atmosphere that they normally would be. What, as parents, do we need to look for in those situations where you have kids that are not going to be very communicative because they're teenagers, but we can tell that they're on the struggle bus?
So I think it's really important to talk to your teen, show them that you're a support, and also encourage them to reach out to their friends. Nowadays, almost every teenager has a smartphone or some form of technology that they could do FaceTime, Zoom, any other platforms to engage with them. I think it's really important to communicate with your any of the adults in the household as far as what your comfort level is, if you want your teenager to get together with friends or not, and what boundaries you want to set forth. So if it was like outside versus if they're allowed to be in a car with them or not, so all those things need to be communicated. It's really interesting because a lot of adults will say, oh, this has been really wonderful. I've had a lot of great times with my family now that we're stuck in here. And a lot of the teenagers say, I have never been so miserable with my parents all the time. So I see both ends of it. And I think that as an adult, we want to pretend everything is great when inside we're like, pulling our hair out a little bit. So you have to be realistic of everyone needs a little break from people when you're around them all the time. So how can you set those breaks? So a teenager is going to be in their room on their phone. Maybe you do want to set a little bit of fun, engaging time like game night, movie night, go for a family walk, or even say to them, I'm going on a walk. You could have the house free range right now to like kind of do whatever you want for the next hour within limits, just so they feel like they're not trapped in their room even, just so they can freely walk around the house however they want, knowing that their parents aren't staring at them or noticing everything.
I'm laughing over here because you made me think of something. My son came home for the weekend and then I said, oh, maybe I'll come see you next weekend. And he goes, I can't do 2 weekends of you in a row.
Right.
We're like, oh, good. We get to bond with our kids. And they're like, back up, Mom.
It's a bit much. Yeah.
That made me laugh when you said that, which brings us now to that age set. You've got high school students, you've got college students. And I think a lot of high school kids are really struggling because they're missing out on all of these big moments. It started last year and now it's carrying into this year, right. This class of seniors with homecoming, and are they going to have prom? Are they going to have graduation? And these kids are upset. I mean, they're missing out on these milestones. How do you help them get through this situation?
So I think one of the most important things to focus on with the whole pandemic is I'm happy and I'm healthy and my family's healthy is a wonderful mindset to have. I've kind of had that attitude the whole time and it's gotten me through it. And to talk to them about the importance of that, and that in the scheme of things, I'm sure you could look back and you remember your prom or you remember your homecoming, but that wasn't a pivotal moment in your life. So it seems like it's the most monumental thing at the time, but fast forward, years later, that's not something that stands out as that monumental moment. And I think that it's really important to teach them about perspective where they might not understand it, but to realize that ultimately it's about our health and safety. And that's what really matters. And so whether it's finding new ways to be creative, to make sure that we are engaging with our friends, it's a great way to do it. I've seen things on the internet where people are doing like mini proms where they have like 5 to 10 people and they're outside, and it's just a way for friends to get together. And there are really safe ways that they could do these great events in their own way.
And I think a lot have already done that. And it's kind of fun actually to see how creative people have gotten. Yeah. And maybe some of these things will be new spinoffs for what, they do moving forward. So the last grouping of kids, so to speak, is the ones who are at the very end of college and beginning their lives outside of college. I have one that graduated who really, didn't have a great end of her senior year. And even deciding to do a gap year, it's one disappointment after another. And I know going into adulthood, there's expectations. A lot of families can't support another adult in a house for whatever reason. What advice do we want to give for those young adults and parents of young adults about how to move through this next phase of life in the current conditions?
So again, it brings into perspective. So when you look at it, we go to college to further our career. That is the original plan. Now, there is a huge social life that can be incorporated in that. And it's different based on if we're going to community college or if we're going to, four-year university. So taking the ultimate goal was to further our career. There are still jobs out there. So many people are hiring, whether it is in the office or whether it is virtual. So it would be getting them to regroup, refocus, and get excited about getting out in the workforce.
And Amanda, one last note here. The holidays are coming up. Mm-hmm. These kids are coming home from college, and a lot of them are coming home at Thanksgiving And they used to only be home, as we know, for a month, usually the middle of December into January. Well, now it looks like they're going to be home for at least 2 months. The holidays are stressful to begin with.
Right.
One final note here, help us get through what could be a really, really stressful holiday season, because we're getting a twofer here. We've got the holidays, and then we've got these kids coming home, and they're not going anywhere. Help us, Amanda. Help us.
Good luck to all the moms and dads out there.
Oh, that's your advice. And we're done.
And we're done. I would definitely say good luck. I think that also to take it as everyone is learning and to discuss what are your expectations when your child is home and what are their expectations of their parents, because they may be used to not having a curfew. Now all of a sudden you have a curfew, however it may be, but you need to discuss on both ends what your expectations are. And it may be a good idea, maybe every Sunday night or every Friday night, whatever you decide, but once a week to do a weekly review. What went well? Where did we struggle? And on both ends. So this way that you are completely open and you say, okay, it's a new week, let's regroup and let's get started. And we know where we need to work on. And this way, you know where your boundaries are, what's working for you, what's not working for you. And it could be that maybe you needed some more personal space. So then you work on that next week, or it could be maybe not so many questions. However it may be, it's important that you can review it so you can take it as a new look, a new week.
That's
Amanda,
great advice.
You are fantastic. I'm going to call you every day. I need help, Amanda. He said,
I'm texting you right now.
Amanda.
No, it's really great advice, Amanda. And you really, I think, hopefully helped parents of all age of kids navigate this a little bit more. We didn't think we were going to be in this ship on this ocean for so darn long, and yet we are. So thank you so much for this great advice.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Amanda. I like what Amanda said, to sort of have that weekly meeting to say what worked, what didn't work, what can we change? Mom, you need to get out of my face. I get it. I think that's a good idea. And just Carrie, on a personal note, again, feeding off of what Amanda said, I did not go to my prom. It was my choice. I did not go. And I can tell you, I am not scarred for life. I am not in therapy because I didn't go to my prom. It really, it's not the end of the world. I know this is tough. I know these kids are missing out, but it's not going to scar them for life.
And even though your experience was one where you look back and go, hey, I'm good. I did not need those things. Other kids do. And we wanted to make sure that we acknowledged that. And we would make sure that we were able to give some good advice. So parents at home, because they're still all stuck at home, can really help their kids. So we appreciate all of Amanda's advice. We also really appreciate you being with us. We really enjoy that you listen to our podcast. And if ever you want to lend some comments or give us some ideas, just go to chick2chick.com and hit contact. And you can ask us some questions or find out what we are going to chirp about next. So until then, when we're back to chirp about another topic.